Hello and welcome to my Paradox Interactive Historical Playthrough Mega Series, playing Victoria III as the modern-day nation of Turkey, or rather what they will become as a modern-day nation. I'm Admiral Jedi. Perhaps you might have already watched some of my existing Turkey series playing Crusader Kings 3 and also Europa Universalis 4. Playing as the precursors of the of Turkey, specifically the Ottoman Empire, also played as the Seljuk Empire. So we're going to start a new game in Victoria 3 to continue right where we left off in EU4. And while the Ottomans are a suggested playthrough on the economic dominance side, I'm going to go actually for the egalitarian society side, simply because the research that I've done has shown that actually the Ottoman Empire at this time attempted some of the most liberal reforms around. So let's go ahead and pick a country. While we're doing this, I will get out of the way a couple things, and first of all answer the question of what is a historical playthrough. If you haven't seen my videos before, then I will explain, and that is a historical playthrough is where I take a nation and try to play their ancestors as historically accurately in the game as I possibly can. And this would include being as true to history for things like military conflicts, socioeconomic events, and attitudes, and all that jazz. So also, if you've seen my videos before, you'll know that I've got to go through and give my disclaimers. I've got a few disclaimers that we're going to make, so if you want to skip those because you've heard me do these before, go ahead and just skip to one of the other chapters down below in the YouTube series. And so disclaimer number one is I'm going to be playing as history. Usually, I guess this is disclaimer number 3, but let's bump it up to disclaimer number 1. And that is to say a bunch of really terrible things happen in history. The poor treatment of the marginalization of other ethnicities, of women. There were wars and diseases and people doing really horrible things to each other. I'm not going to in any way justify the morality of those. In fact, I usually don't justify the morality of them. But where history happened, I will frequently make those choices. And I'm not making those choices because I think they were cool or that I want to do them or anything like that, but rather simply because they were made in the past. Disclaimer number 2, this is not a tutorial on how to play Victoria 3. Far from it. This is a what did history look like back in that time. And disclaimer number 3 is I am an American, which means I'm probably going to screw up pronunciations for things, and I'm going to not be as culturally sensitive to certain issues that occurred as I should have been. And I welcome you to please comment and or correct me on those things. And I always say kindness is appreciated but not necessary. So with those disclaimers out of the way, let us go ahead and select the Ottoman Empire and get started. Let's take a look around and familiarize ourselves with what the empire looks like currently. At the end of the EU4 series, I did do a comparison, and so we're not going to do the exact same thing again, but rather we are going to just sort of look and see, okay, here's what we've got. All right, you can see us here. We have a few vassals, or I guess that's the term from EU4, protectorates and all that sort of thing. So I'm pretty sure Tripolitania is one of ours. Yep, they're a puppet of the Ottoman Empire. We lost Egypt at the end of EU4. We're going to take it back, practically right at the beginning of this one. So stay tuned for that. And we still have Moldavia, Wallachia, and Serbia as our protectorates or puppets. Greece has declared their independence, and so that's gonna stay that way. The primary focus of this first video is going to be the Tanzimat era, which was brought about by this guy, Sultan Mahmud II. So after a series of major defeats by the Russian Empire, and just a general recognition that things weren't going so well for the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan put through a series, he and his bureaucrats put through a series of reforms known as Tanzimat. And so we are going to get started with those right away. And so here in the game, the moment you do that, it's going to add some journal entries for us that are all Tanzimat, excuse me, to modernize the army, bureaucratic reform, educational reform, reclaim Syria, okay, back from the Egyptian Empire. So you only need to do 4 of these, but you need to do them within 20 years. That is going to be rough. That is going to be rough because we are not in a really strong position economically or technologically, and this is historically accurate. Having played through VIC3 before as France, you start a lot further down on the tech tree than the Ottoman Empire does, and that is also, again, historically accurate. There's a lot to kind of unpack there, so maybe I'll just unpack it as we go. Let's take a look at some of the first actions that we're going to go ahead with. Now, one of the first things we're going to do is handle our interest groups right away in as historically accurate, I'll stop saying that, in as accurate as a way as we possibly can. So what we see is we see a huge amount of clout to these local governors, which was true. And so we need to start diminishing them as quickly as possible. So the way that I've found to do this is as follows. So first, let's go ahead and get government reform and kick them out of government right away. So we get a boost there because the intelligentsia that we represent and they were not compatible. So out of government, we can immediately suppress them, which is what we're going to do, and start killing their clout. We're also going to suppress the Ulema, which was the religious faction at the time, and I'm going to start bolstering rural folk, and I think that's what we're going to stay with. I'm not really going to bolster armed forces, but we're not going to suppress them either. And that's to try and bring the balance of power a bit more in line. And that's exactly what a huge focus of ours is going to be. And specifically what I mean by that is when we look at which of the Tanzimats we're going to go after. So here's the ones we're going to go after. We're going to go after reclaiming Syria. I'm not going to super hardcore focus on urbanization. I don't think that was historically accurate or not, but the huge focus on it, I don't think was. I need to look into separatism a little bit more. We are going to work on some army modernization. We are definitely going to be after bureaucratic reform. And I think what I'd like to do is some educational reform as well. So now is a good time to talk about what my research sources have been. In addition to just a bunch of Wikipedia and Google searches, I've been reading 2 books, so I'm going to have those links in the video description for anybody that wants to watch, or read them, rather. The first is The Empire's Longest Century by İlber Ortaylı, and I want to make a special shout-out to my Reddit friend, Impossible Shoe, for recommending that one. So thank you. It's been a good read so far. And the second book, I'm continuing with Carolyn Finkel's Osman's Dream book, which is a huge, massive, like 700-page book of Ottoman history from basically their inception all the way through the modern era. So those 2 books, like I said, I've got some links in the description for that. And it's through that research and related Googling and Wikipedia, like I said, that I come up with what decisions I'm making and when and all that sort of thing. Now, a major reality for the Ottoman Empire at this point is they were rapidly becoming not an empire. And the great powers were really overtaking them in terms of economic capability, military capability, and the Ottomans were being really, in my opinion, kind of sidelined. like, oh yeah, those guys, we need to do something about them. So we're going to establish some diplomatic relations immediately with Britain, France, and Austria to, work it out. So along these lines, something that's been happening, historically speaking, and we're going to represent this as best as we can, is Britain, following the invention of the steamship. They weren't really involved for a while in the Eastern Mediterranean area until the invention of the steamship. And at that point, they really got involved, to the point where eventually Britain was one of the major, if not the major, trading partners with the Ottoman Empire, and some would argue to the detriment of the Ottoman Empire, where essentially every produced resource in the Ottoman, by way of what's eventually going to become a free trade agreement between the Ottomans and Great Britain, was essentially just shipped out to Britain. And some would argue that coming up soon, time-wise, again, we start here in 1836, that the Ottoman Empire was less of an independent empire and more of a European state. Now, you'll remember in the beginning that I said we were going to go with egalitarian society because the Ottomans ended up being quite liberal, in fact, especially in this time. So the overarching goal of the Tanzimat was a law and order protection of individual freedoms, and not necessarily liberal freedoms like we know them today, but rather the freedom to not be just killed immediately or have your property confiscated by the Sultan because, he wills it. And one of the things that happened over time, and this is going to help us out in our initial efforts, is people wanted slavery banned like crazy, and Europe really wanted slavery banned as well. So Europe began really pushing their ideas onto the Ottomans, and in a way the Ottomans didn't have much of a choice, because it was like, hey, big bad Russia is up there, and they're coming. So unless you want to be swallowed up by Russia, you better do what we say, kind of a deal. So the Ottomans, in wanting to get rid of slavery, came to the compromise agreement that instead of banning slavery outright, which would be practically impossible, that they would simply ban slave trade. And this serves us because we're not going to see any opposition to it whatsoever, and we'll see that the local governors go from 50% political strength down to 25% political strength. So we're going to start that right away as another effort to continually erode their power base. Now, let's keep looking at a few more of the laws that we're going to shoot for, but obviously we can only do one at a time. So that's really kind of a major historical barrier right there, to be honest with you, is we can't try to enact more than one law at the same time. Serfdom was abolished in 1838. So we're going to work on that, but we also need to get rid of this massive opposition that's going to come from the local governors by decreasing their clout and possibly do some trade-offs with them. A few other laws we're going to be looking to pass right away, again, as soon as we possibly can, is we need to do something with education, because in this time, educational, schools basically sort of came into existence. And so this definitely was something that happened. I don't think they were religious schools, though. So we're going to need to look at how to accomplish private schools or public schools. And that will hopefully help us get us closer to accomplishing our education Tanzimat goals. So something else that we're going to be looking at is part of the personal freedom aspect. The Ottoman Empire, since its inception, had always been a patchwork of multiple cultures. And, we see that here. So we have a lot of cultures that were allowed to keep their cultural and religious identities without being forced to convert. especially on the religious side, because the non-Muslims had to pay the jizya, or the tax, and that was, a huge source of revenue for the government, but that was gotten rid of fairly quickly, and so during the Tanzimat era. And so what we're going to do to simulate that is we are going to look at the citizenship branch. And what we're going to try to do is move down this branch as much as we can. Because really up here is like, we hate everybody, we love everybody, all right? Up, down, up, down. So we're going to move down this branch as much as we can and allow for more cultural minorities to be treated equally. That was a big, big deal. Now, that brought a lot of problems up, because in Islam, there are 3 statuses for people that are codified in Sharia, in Islamic law. 1, Muslim or not. So Islamic law says that. 2, male or female. And 3, slave or free. And here we see we're trying to downplay 2 of those 3 at least. I haven't done any research yet on women's rights, so we'll get there. So that was an interesting challenge for the people at the time. I'm a habitual window closer, sorry about that. Because they're like, all right, how do we give equal treatment to non-Muslims while not saying that we are violating Sharia, which they wanted to not do, not violate Sharia. And so what they came up with was basically another, instead of paying the tax because you're not a Muslim, you could pay a tax to avoid military service. And so money still came into the Ottoman treasury, and there was some degree of separation that they could point to their religious hardliners and say, no, we're not allowing them into the military. Now, speaking of the military, one of the things that we talked about in the very beginning is we're going to be looking at modernizing the military as much as we can. And specifically, this Tanzimat tells us, okay, we've got to research Napoleonic warfare, which we're going to do right away, actually. Where are you at, bro? There you are. All right. We got to do Napoleonic warfare, which is right there as a tier 1 anyway, so no problem. And then we need to have a certain amount of barracks. Okay, fine. But specifically, less than 25% of our eligible formations can be irregular. So we've got to basically move away from the irregulars, which we see a fair amount of. What did it say? We're at 75%? Yeah, we're currently at 70. So most of our army is irregular, not professional. So we've got to get away from that. We're going to find out, as I already have in some of my test runs, that doing that is not as simple as it sounds. I could simply go through right now and how do we do that again? You can go. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the new military stuff, which I'm really liking, by the way. We could go through and just pop these upgrades, and then I will absolutely kill myself economically in terms of missing resources and that sort of thing. So anyway, let's go back and look at these 4 Tanzimats and get started. Education reform, we're going to work on that through our education reform and literacy levels. Army modernization. Bureaucratic reform, we forgot to talk about that. Okay, so I've got to do these hereditary bureaucrats land. But all that's going to really involve bringing down the clout. See these huge 55% oppositions. That's just one people. Of course, saying, hey, this hereditary position that you've already had, we're going to undermine that by possibly appointing other people. Of course they're going to be opposed to that, right? But the thing is, their clout's so big that passing these laws is not impossible, but it's very difficult with it. So that's, again, why I chose that first slavery one, because you'll see here, where's our law at? That there's no stall percentage. And that's because nobody opposes the law. There's not a ton of people supporting it, which is why we have a low success chance, okay? And again, I'm really liking the way, Victoria 3, when it first came out, I've heard people whining about it, like, oh, it's got bugs. It's like, you know what? It's Paradox people, man. Like, give them a break. These guys are awesome. And they're always like I know I'm kind of just, sucking up here, but they're always like releasing new stuff and making the game better and better and better over time. And so the changes to the laws are great. So, like I said, we're not going to see any stalls because nobody's opposing it. Whereas, if I try to pass any one of those other laws, you'd see this massive, 50% stall chance. Simply, okay, whatever, I'm going to stop trying to bring it up. Because they're opposing it. So that's going to be a struggle for us. So there you have it. This game is really underway. I'd like to just do one more thing before I officially get started. And that's switch us over to iron frame buildings. And let's do our first little... let's do our first little construction here. Which is funny because it's like the moment you do that, it's like, oh, now you're losing money. Oh, okay, great. So the Ottoman economy in this game and in real life was not in good shapes. This is a very challenging playthrough for me. The only other nations that I played VIC3 as so far has been France, and that was not hard from an economic standpoint. But this, from an economic standpoint, requires a lot of balancing and tweaking. And so let's get started. Now, here we have an event that's not necessarily tied to a historical time period, but is accurate. With the establishment of the military draft, the states must now decide the role, if any, non-Muslims in our army. So remember, I said before, those who cannot afford it, wink wink, may pay a draft exemption tax. Now, while the government was big on face, at its face value, saying, hey, everybody's equal, it made huge ripples, and people were like, what are you talking about? The Quran says we're not equal. Like, what are you doing? So it's like, yeah, okay, well, I'll tell you what. And also they needed the money that was going away from the jizya. See, substituting their blood with a special, well, I guess it's jizya tax. So anyway, it was sort of two birds with one stone, because Muslims did not want to fight alongside dhimmis, or non-Muslims. It's like, guess what? We get extra money, and we don't have to force our military to fight alongside them still. Boom. That's exactly what happened. Now, there's a bit of a conundrum there, because what you had non-Muslims staying home, making money, growing their businesses, improving their technology and social standing, all while Muslims were off fighting and dying in wars. And so it ended up leading to circumstances where non-Muslims ended up being more prosperous than Muslims, which of course caused more cultural friction there as well. So, legacy slavery finally enacted 3 freaking years later. It's taken forever. That's why I think this this Sick Man of Europe challenge is so challenging, because you have to do it in a short amount of time. So I might not do it, actually. So with legacy slavery activated, another thing that's going to be really challenging is this educational reform, because it involves literacy getting up over time, and need to do that. Need to get that started kind of quickly. And so literacy by way of education is also going to be rough. I think the closest I'm going to be able to get to it is this private schools, because if we do public schools, we're going to need to not only get rid of church and state, which we haven't done. We're going to need to get rid of land reform, which is a labyrinth of laws. It's like you can't get rid of land reform without this and that and that. So private schools, I think we're going to try, because the only thing we need to get rid of is state religion, and move to freedom of conscience. Now, I think we can do this because also we're not going to really, the ulema are they're doing okay right now. So let's go ahead and roll forward with that in preparation for our educational initiative, and then let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So we'll give it about a week to go by. Unfortunately, we lost bonuses from the ulema, which sucks. But okay, so we're seeing. Oh, you know what? It's the stall chance only comes out when they do a counter movement. So I'm not seeing a counter movement yet. So theoretically, we should be doing okay with our 0% stalls. It's once they start their counter movements and the stall percentage is high that we're going to have problems. So for now, we're moving towards a goal in late 1839, so let's fast forward to that a little bit now, which is we're going to wage war on Egypt. Now, this did happen where the Ottomans attempted to recover Egypt. They declared war on Egypt, and it was an unmitigated disaster, such that the entire Ottoman fleet, in fact, was surrendered to the Egyptians. And the English had to come in and sort of bail the Ottomans out, and ultimately were the ones who made the landing and were successful in the war. And so I can't really, command them to do that, so to speak. So what we are going to do is do the diplomatic play ourselves. Now, it looks like I have a truce that needs to wear off until 1840, so we're going to fast forward to that now. And so we can finally do this. So we're going to force a diplomatic play and get this all started. So what we're going to do is we're going to add all of these to our war goals. Let's just get this done with here. Okay, and then I'm going to try to sway, which we can't do yet until we get through that phase. So let's go ahead and fast forward to that as well. But wait, what's this? Reasserting our authority. Oh yeah, okay. Sees, however, this is likely to draw the attention of the great powers in Europe, which is exactly what happened. So we will get some extra help there in our relationships with them, which will hopefully help us sway. And we can see both of them, France and Great Britain. We're going to try for Great Britain for historical accuracy's sake, but I have yet to pull this off. France is typically the one, but again, that's not historically accurate. So let's fast forward again and go ahead and try to do our sway at this point. So we still have, what do we have? 36 maneuvers. All right, that's cool. So we'll try to do Britain. Now, it's kind of interesting. You can actually try to sway them with an encouragement to ban... Okay, that's not going to work. To ban slavery. I'm sure Britain would be down for that, but that's not going to work. So we'll just do obligations. And then I'm also going to, I think, do France as well. Because I think Britain kind of, in the past, they have just not accepted the invitation, let's just say. Oh, we're attempting to sway support. Okay, so I guess we've got to... All right, great. Oh, Great Britain sides with the Ottoman Empire. Okay, perfect. All right, so with Great Britain on our side, that's exactly what did happen. And so now I'm going to go and just do some game mechanics here where we're going to move all these others up to our primary to make sure that they don't just immediately capitulate with a great power against them now, and I only get one of them. So we're going to really force the whole war here. Now, Great Britain actually performed a Syrian landing in the area that is here in the game known as Lebanon. So because I think those are cool and fun, and I want to divide their forces, we're going to go ahead and try to do that as well. So here we go, and I've got an army waiting in the wings to do that. So let's go ahead and get this underway. So here on the Tripoli side, I think what I'm going to do is just really kind of try to hold the line here and hopefully Great Britain comes in. Is this them? Yeah. So they should be able to come in. I've tried to do this battle by myself and failed without a great power, which is super historically accurate. So they're going to hopefully come in and save the day here shortly. All right, it looks like our naval landing did indeed work, And so let's get to it. And there you have it. Thank you, Great Britain. And we got it back. We got back a significant part of Egypt. And at this point, what happened was an agreement was made between all the great powers such that Muhammad Ali and his family were given permanent ownership, governorship. It was acknowledged that Egypt would pass along permanently to them and their family. And in exchange, this area here was returned to the Ottoman Empire, which has just happened. So with the completion of our general orders research, which just finished, where are we at? General staff, right here. We can switch this production method to general training, which is part of our Tanzimat journal for army modernization. We've met everything else. And so if I go ahead and switch that, it doesn't look like it's going to cause me any problems, other than it looks like it swaps out a little bit more. Okay, there's a little bit more small arms, and it swaps out servicemen for officers. And we've got not enough qualifications. Okay, fine. I don't know if that means anything, but so if we go ahead and do that, then boom, we get that journal entry complete, and we are 50% of the way with 2 more needed to go. So we're almost guaranteed a suppress separatism at this point. And really, it's competing between urbanization, which is becoming a lot harder to do than I thought, and bureaucratic reform, which I'm working on as much as I possibly can. So in order to accomplish bureaucratic reform, we've got to get rid of land-based taxation, and we can move to per capita taxation, but anything else besides land-based is completely disallowed by traditionalism. So there's a little bit of a web here. And I've been working on repealing traditionalism in favor of agrarianism, because that was kind of the easiest thing to do and with the least opposition, and probably the most historically accurate as well. The Ottoman economy did not boom in this period, but they did attempt some reforms at it. My big problem here is I'm already being opposed by local governors, and the moment, I mean, we should be close. Heck, I could even just hit the play button here. Well, I don't want to sacrifice my research, so let me get something else going on here. All right, so we could keep going, and possibly even there's a chance it could succeed while I spend all this time talking to you. But anyway, the problem that we're going to have with this is once we try to do per capita, guess who's going to oppose it again? My local governors, but it will radicalize them, and with still massive amounts of clout, despite all the work that I've done to reduce that, they are going to rebel. Okay, so we've got agrarianism, and, you know, here you go. So the moment I hit this button, we're gonna see a rebellion, and if you've never seen this before, we might as well go ahead and do it. Agrarian, because I'm probably gonna have to back this out once the rebellion starts. So it's like, all right, cool, we've got agrarianism, we can finally switch over to per capita taxation. Do the Well, still, armed forces radical is basically just the same as local governors radical, because they're just as powerful. They're practically just as powerful. 29.6. Anyway, let's go ahead and roll with per capita, and you're gonna see here shortly. It's gonna blah here any second. Once the preserve movement pops up, they're already going to be angry and will be immediately radicalized. There it is. Pop. So, and then my problem with this is, oh gee, only the entire Anatolian plateau plus down into Iraq is gonna rebel. Now, okay, 116? That's not super high. I've seen it higher. If I can drop them below 100, the revolution goes away. So we're going to experiment with that for a little bit, but you're probably going to see in just a couple seconds that I kind of rewound and did a different approach, which is what happened. So the way that I chose around that was to try and pass, which just happened, dedicated police force, which kind of made the local governors happy. So we'll go ahead and do a little save file here. I've got a million save files. I'm a cheater. But again, I've mentioned this in the past, so I can produce historical content as opposed to being random number generated into Sweden merging with Russia and attacking me or whatever. Anyway, so at this point, we should hopefully be able to pass per capita taxation. Okay, everyone's going to like it except local governors. That's fine. But they won't radicalize. Trade unions will radicalize, but they're marginalized, so sucks to be them. Now, this is probably going to take a long time because we're going to have a preserve movement, I'm sure, pop up. And they'll stall me out forever. 29% isn't the greatest. But we're about to hit suppress separatism, which, frankly, all we had to do was just wait. Yeah, there's my preserve. And so now I've got my 1/3 of all my things, which is secret code for all of them, are going to be stalls. Anyway, so we're in a race to the finish line here. We got 5 more years. I should be able to pass this law in 5 years. This is going to clear here pretty shortly. And got my fingers crossed. So I think we're going to make it happen. Now, do I need to make it happen from a historical perspective? No, not really. But I suspect that failing this and getting the dead man of Europe is probably not something that's going to make the remainder of my gameplay be at all enjoyable. So there we go. Suppress separatism completed. We're 3/4 of the way there. We just need one more Tanzimat journal entry. Let's hope for bureaucratic reform. I should be able to resurrect my bureaucracy out of deficit here pretty easily. So let's hope for the best. Now, we've got a war coming up in 2 years, so I should probably get ready for that. Here we are, October 5th, 1853, which was the begin date of the Crimean War. I don't think we're going to be able to do this because, well, it's just historically impossible, it appears. So let's just play through to the whatchamacallit, diplomatic maneuvers phase. So first of all, we see already that we have Great Qing leaning to help Russia. That just straight didn't happen. And we'll talk more about the Crimean War sort of slowly here. The background of it, what it meant and everything. Okay, but I'm just... we're probably not even going to do it, which is unfortunate because it's a major interaction between Russia and the Ottoman Empire, which involved Great Britain and France and eventually Austria, all against Russia. Now, Russia was the aggressor in this, so that could be a problem, because I'm pretty sure I've got nasty, well, 6.7, that's not a ton. Okay, Russia was the aggressor, and let's go ahead and just get this talked about in terms of how and why it happened. I've hinted at this before, but one of the strengths, which really became a weakness, of the Ottoman Empire was its patchwork of cultures. And so I think we have that, you know, fairly well represented. Okay, what is this? There's, this is turmoil. Okay. So I think if we go to maybe population and charts, okay, culture. So there was a fair amount. I mean, 13.6% Greeks. I don't even know if these numbers are historically accurate or not, but lots of Albanians, lots of Bulgarians. And then in terms of the religion, I've mentioned in previous videos and haven't really talked about it here all that much, but the Ottomanness of the Ottoman Empire was such that you were not forced to accept Islam. You were able to keep your own religion. You were able to keep your own culture. That was sort of valued by them, not only for the money that it used to bring in, but also just because it was just sort of the nature of the Ottoman Empire. I don't know why I'm up in Italy. That they would say, okay, you're going to be within the empire, you're going to be a member of the empire, but you can, again, keep your identity and religion. So why is this significant? Because the Wallachians were, Christian, and then you had the Greeks who were Orthodox Christian. And what happened is each of the great powers, so let's just focus on on three of the great powers. France really considered itself the sort of protector of Catholics. Britain considered itself sort of the protector of Protestants. And Russia considered itself Britain's already waging war against them. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. Russia considered themselves the protector of the Orthodox, Greek Orthodox Christians. And so what would happen is Russia would say, hey, there's a lot of Greek Orthodox in here. They're really under our protection. And France would say, well, the Catholics that were authorized to rebuild the holy sites in Israel, they're under our protection. And so what happened was the great powers would sort of start circling each other, sort of vying for protectorship over the culture that they considered themselves the protector for in the Ottoman Empire. And as this went on, I've mentioned in the EU4 series, and I'll mention it here, the Ottoman Empire itself kind of got sidelined, where it was like, oh, hey, they were fighting almost proxy religious wars, really in the hearts and minds of people, although it became a real war, inside the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire, in a way, was almost like holding up their hands going, hey, we're here. To the point where Tsar Nicholas in Russia was the first one to coin the phrase describing the Ottoman Empire as the sick man of Europe, which is what we see here. In other words, he was basically saying, yeah, they're backwards, they're not technologically advanced, they're not economically advanced, they're not militarily advanced, so we've got to kind of work with them, I guess, to protect our people, wherever they may be. And Russia deciding that they were the protectors of the Eastern Greek Orthodox, and also of the Moldavian and Wallachia, the Danubian principalities here, invaded to, quote-unquote, protect them. Sound familiar? Pretty sure they're still doing that. But anyway, so that's what led to the Crimean War. And rather than France and Britain going, yeah, we agree with you, the Ottoman Empire is the sick man of Europe, we're going to go ahead and join you and split up the empire, rather than doing that, they saw Russia's aggression as a way for them to extend their power, military and economic, by trade into the Black and Mediterranean Sea, and they saw that as a bad thing. So they joined with the Ottoman Empire and fought against them. So that would be great if we can do it, but we can't. So I'm going to roll back my save, and unfortunately, well, I really do want to see what Britain's up to here. I really wish there was a way you could see, like, what war they're in. I don't think you can. That sure would be a cool feature. Paradox. Oh, Well, no, okay, they're active diplomatic plays. Okay, you can. So, yay, they thought of it already. Diplomatic play in Danube. Oh, no, that's me. Okay, let's get this figured out. And it turns out it was literally staring me in the face the entire time, so if any of you were screaming at the screen saying, it's right in front of you, yeah, you were correct. So, Great Britain is in a war, it turns out, against Great Qing, who just happens to have Russia as an ally. So again, that is not historically accurate. It would be nice if I could join this war. I don't think that I can. Of course, what probably happened there is there was a diplomatic play that I didn't really see until it was too late. So I think we're unfortunately going to have to bypass the Crimean War. You know what? Forget that. Let's just start. I already declared, so let's just get everybody mobilized and see what happens. Thank you. We finally have per capita taxation, which came none too soon because I'm way in debt. In addition to that, we should have completed all 4 of the Sick Man of Europe. Ta-da! Okay, very happy with that. And let's see, has successfully modernized and reasserted itself on the world stage. A new era begins for the Ottoman state. You know what? I like this extra offense and defense here, especially because we're in the middle of a war that I'm clearly losing. One of the things that I didn't take into account is I saw all this British Union Jack up here, and didn't realize. Well, Russia had like all their troops on the British Isle for a while, and now they're all on me. So yeah, I was thinking, oh, you know, Britain's attacking up there. We'll kind of consider it the same war if I'm attacking on a separate front. It's not really going that way. It's not going that well. So, anyway, glad we finished Tanzimat. Very significant, you know, happening. So let's see if we can wrap this Crimean War up. Probably not. I'm probably going to lose it and have to rewind. But we'll try. So it's a year too early, and I'm totally getting wasted because I don't have the French or British on my side. Technically, the alliance of the Ottomans, French, and British, quote-unquote, won the Crimean War. I say quote-unquote. It was a very, very bloody war with casualties, huge casualties on all sides. And so things are really, really, really going downhill for me. So I'm going to give them the rest of Dobruja and propose a peace deal, especially because what's happened here is Austria ended up mediating the peace for the Crimean War and held, while they were doing it, these principalities of Moldavia, Wallachia, and Serbia sort of underneath their own sovereignty, if you will. And eventually what happened with them is they merged up. And I don't know if they actually merged up, but they formed like an alliance among themselves called the United Principalities, which is indeed here. So I'm going to just say we welcome this and get some, you know, good will with them, and we will call the Crimean War at an end. In addition to that, we will call this video at an end. Now, the Crimean War was ended in 1856 by what's called the Treaty of Paris, and from it, the Ottomans received the Imperial Edict, which was another set of requirements placed upon them by the great powers pertaining to religion in the Ottoman Empire, cultural in the Ottoman Empire. But we've done a lot already this video and had some success that I'm happy about, even though I just lost this to Russia, which sucks and is not historically accurate, by the way. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. I want to thank you for watching thank everyone for watching my first Victoria 3 series of the Ottoman empires, headed towards turning ourselves into Turkey. And that will be the end of this mega series. But for now, this is the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching.